Hey guys, Omerko here, self-taught web developer. Here we are just one video away from finishing our Angular Essentials series. Before we do that, let's quickly see how unit testing works in Angular. Unit testing in Angular uses Jasmine and Karma to perform tests and return overview of those. We will mostly write tests for each of our statement, branch of code and method that we wrote in our project. To work with tests, I will generate new Angular project. So for this, in my terminal, I will run ng-new for new Angular project, and I will pass a name of a project which will be testing Angular, and that's good enough. This command will generate my new Angular project and it will ask me few questions. First of all, I will be asked about strict types in Angular. I can simply go no to this, so N to pass no and hit enter, as those strict types are kinda not important for our example here. Then it will ask me about Angular routing. I can also go no to that, as we won't need that. And finally, it will ask me about type of stylings that I wish to use. I will simply go with CSS here. First of all, let's see how testing is set up in Angular. Go to source folder in your project and open test.typescript file. Here we can see our getTestBed method, which will integrate our testing modules here, which will at the end hold all of our tests. Also, we can see that Angular will search all of the files which are ending with .spec.typescript, and all of those are test files in Angular indeed. To confirm that, we can go into our app folder, and here we will have our app.component.spec.typescript file, and inside we will have some of our default tests from Angular CLI. First of all, we can see that Angular will describe our component here and also import everything that we need to test our component, like our app component itself in declarations array. All of that will be prepared for testing, and this will happen before each of our tests. Tests are written, and those are using our it method. This method should declare our test. Then inside we pass mostly a string which will hold more information about our test. And then we have our callback function where we go through our test, and also by the end of that we should expect some value from the test. For example, here we have our test which should test creation of our app component itself. As we described our test here, in our callback we are creating the component of app component which we already have. We are setting that to fixture, and right here we are getting instance of that component. And as we are working with our app component, that app component is main wrapper for our whole application. And at the bottom here we are expecting our app to be truthy, which will indicate that this component exists, which will indicate that our application was successfully created, and that was the description of our test. Also, we have test right here that expects that our app title property is set to testing Angular. Also, our description says the similar thing. By going to my app.component.typescript file right here, I can confirm that, as in my file I do have the title property with testing Angular. And one more final test here, it says that should render title. Once it gathered all information, once it created our app component, it will also detect changes if there were any on our component itself. It will get the native element of the component, which is our HTML file. Then it will get specific content from that HTML, like our .content section and span inside. It will check the text content of it, and that text content should contain testing Angular app is running. Now if I would go to my app.component.html file here, if I would search to my content class, so this is in CSS, another one, just down below, here in my content class, I could check that inside I do have a span element which will bind my title, which is testing Angular, and here it will have a text of app is running, which will basically be the same text as this here. So this test is also truthy, it's also good test. Now to test this, we can simply go into our terminal and run ng test. This command will run test for our entire project and it will return the result to us. Once this is finished in our terminal, we will see this 3 success of our test. And also it will open a new window to our browser which will show us a testing result. Now I will close this test and I will run ng test code coverage. This will return code coverage of our code with our tests. In our example, it is 100%. And this here will also generate coverage folder, and there I will have index.html file inside. I will right click on my file and I will reveal it in my file explorer. By this I could double click on my index.html and we can see the whole result with the test coverage for our code. We can see that we have our app itself, app component TypeScript file, and inside we covered 100% of statements, which is 3 statements, then branches, 0 of those, functions, 0 of those, and lines, 2 of those. If I would open my file right here, I could see the whole code of the file, and also these green ones will indicate that this here is correct. I will now quickly jump to my app component.typescript file, and here I will change my title here to say Angular app instead of our default text that we had. So save this file right now. In my terminal right now, I will run again ng test with the flag of code coverage, and now we should have a different result. So now out of our 3 tests, 2 of those failed. First one that expected Angular app is running to contain this value, obviously it didn't render that, so that was one fail. Also our title should contain this text which is testing Angular, but as we changed it, it also failed. Here in our terminal we could see the example of those 2 fails and also more information. Now I will copy my Angular app text here and go back to my angular.component.spec.typescript file, and here should have as a title testing Angular. I will pass Angular app instead of that, and here I will set Angular app to be equal to app.title property that we have. Also here where we are rendering our title, instead of testing Angular, I will paste my Angular app, my new text. Just by saving our file, we can see that test will reload itself, and now we can see that everything is quite successful. And this is how unit testing in Angular works. Obviously, I showed you how and why it works like that. There is much more to say about unit testing and even to write unit tests. For that, I plan to create separate series as it requires a lot of content, but also it can be in their own course. But this is all for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw, please click like and subscribe as I am posting new content weekly. Thank you once again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.